Hello and welcome to the New Europe studios. I'm here with Jorgo Chatzimarkakis MEP and Alexander Kentikelenis, who's from Cambridge University, and he's been studying the effects of austerity in Greece on people's health. So first of all, Mr. Kentikelenis, could you give me an idea of what you found in your work? What was the study about?
Well, thank you for the invitation. And actually, Greece is now in the 6th year of economic recession, and we have already started to gather a lot of data on the adverse effects on population health. Mm-hmm. So we see both population health at large being affected, and in particular, the health of specific vulnerable groups. For example, when we talk about health in general, we see very worrying trends in terms of access to healthcare services, self-reported health, basically people saying that they feel ill and cannot get access to a public hospital or that sort of situation, which is a very sharp change to the pre-crisis situation. So we analyzed European Union surveys, and we found 43% of people respond that they cannot get access to health services.
That's almost half the population can't access health.
That is 43. No, that's not half the population. It's a 43% rise in the people saying they cannot access health services. So, and that's based on the European Union survey on income and living conditions. So we see these worrying trends. Of course, when we look at people unable to access health services, we look at it in the broader context, which is a growing number of uninsured people, because in Greece health insurance is linked to employment status. And we also look at various barriers to access. For example, new user fees to access health services, co-payments for medicines, that sort of thing. Basically, the kind of policies that shift the cost of healthcare to the citizens at a time where they can afford it the least.
Okay. I mean, we all know that austerity has been a very controversial, and some would say more of a brute force and a surgical precision on the community. But there must be several aspects to it. You're talking about how it's impacted on the vulnerable groups. Now, there is a saying, of course, that the poor are always the first to get it. So I wonder if you'd say, what has been the increasing poverty caused by austerity in the Troika? What has that done to the poor?
Well, we see, the IMF even accepted recently that it miscalculated the economic effects of austerity. But we see that the social effects of austerity were completely disregarded. So, and as you note, we see the fact that in Greece the poor are the ones who suffer the most. That includes pensioners who have big problems accessing health services or medication. We see large rises in infectious disease incidents. For example, HIV infections have skyrocketed in Greece among injecting drug users, which is a very vulnerable population. Yeah. And we saw early on in the crisis, as part of austerity, various programs available for these people were discontinued or scaled back. So we see these sort of issues come back in Greece, and it's a very worrying trend.
Mr. Markakis, as a member of the European Parliament, you must be very painfully aware of some of these effects that we're discussing here. How would you say, from your experience, austerity has affected the health of Greece and others?
Well, this is the week before the final vote of the European Parliament on the two Troika reports. And basically, listening to Mr. Kentikelenis, it seems to me that this last decade, especially the last 5 years, that have been extremely influenced by the Troika in Greece, are a bad lesson from history for us, mankind. Whereas the European Union and the project of uniting the European Union is unique in mankind. What we have done the last 3 years, especially as politicians, and looking away, or having done the Troika and looking away, is unresponsible. We have called the Troika the contemporary Herod, since one of the findings of Mr. Kentikelenis is extremely shocking, is the mortality of newborn, which has in a certain moment, in a certain time frame, gone up to 43%. 43%. I'm extremely angry about this, knowing that the mechanisms of political power lie behind that. We could easily have stopped this sort of austerity and have built up, at least in parallel, some policies of development. We didn't. Why? I think the vote in the Econ Committee of the European Parliament last week, where one part of the Troika report was voted upon, showed exactly why. The only two groups who were against this criticism on the Troika were the Greek communists, so a very small group, and the German conservatives, which is the group of Mrs. Merkel. Not even the rapporteur, who is an Austrian conservative, so very close to the German conservatives, was against his own report. He was critical himself about the Troika. So it's really the bunch of people around Mrs. Merkel who pushes for that policy. And I tell you why. And this makes me even more angry. At the moment, the first gallops in the run-up to the European elections show that the SND, so to say, the Social Democrats, are 0.2% ahead of Mrs. Merkel's EPP, the Conservatives. Now, she wants, with her policy on austerity and no change in it, of course, to win 0.2, to win 1 seat, to win, in order not to give up 3 seats in the European Parliament and to lose them, sorry, to Euroscepticists. She victimizes a whole country, and 43% of newborn mortality is unacceptable. So it is political power game which lies behind that, and I don't accept that. And that is why we have to say it out, to shout it out loudly. That's what I do, and that's what I think I'm elected for as a European parliamentarian.
Okay, well, thank you. I mean, there are many deputies and many other political figures who are taking this report and the effects of austerity very serious, and it's one of the things that really is pushing the agenda in the European elections coming up. Now, I know that the political arena is far away from that of dispassionate researcher, but when you look at the findings that are being mentioned, are they getting taken seriously enough? Is there enough anger? Is there enough action following on from that anger for them?
Well, to begin with, I think they are getting attention, which is an important step towards action. Now, if anything, the broader health situation in Greece, but not only Greece, and various countries in Europe undergoing such rapid economic change, and with having these effects on health systems, for example, should be taken seriously. I think there are lessons to be learned from the Greek example, both for Greeks and for other countries undergoing such change.
Okay. I mean, and also as we're looking at this, there seems to be an undercurrent to a lot of this, that somehow the Greeks have brought this on themselves, and they're somehow responsible for this. Now, this certainly cannot be put on the doors of say, the elderly or the very young, or as you pointed out, the newborns. And also, because the policies appear to fail, that this situation has actually been around for a very long time. Are people getting, frankly, a bit jaded about this, or is this going to be one of the things that's going to really carry on pushing in the election?
Well, there's no doubt that in all member states, including Greece, there were responsibilities that were not taken seriously by politicians, by the political system. The fact, there's a clear fact that the Greek health system was not very strong. It was vulnerable as such, although Greeks have nearly double as much medicine doctors than the Germans have per capita. So they have a lot of doctors there. The question is, how is it organized? So it was difficult before, but when a country falls into such a problem, and Greece is not the only country with a debt problem. Look at Germany. Germany has still 80% of GDP debt, although the economy is running really well. Why should you then blame the most vulnerable groups and let them feel the heat? This is something I don't understand. What we did, by the way, is we did infringe fundamental rights, fundamental human and civil rights, which normally should be protected by the member states, but also by the European Union as such. We did not do that. We let the Troika work, and I would like to put it into the words of my colleague, Mr. Cercas, who is a Spanish social democrat, who is responsible for that Troika report on the health, on the societal and health situation. He said, in such a situation, the help by the Troika should have been done like in a chirurgy. So, but it was a butcher who played the role of the doctor in this case, and it didn't help. So we have to acknowledge this policy was wrong. You can't answer a wrong policy in Greece with a 10 times wrong policy in Europe. So we should stop it, and we should thank academia, especially Mr. Kentikelenis, who came here to Brussels, not because he needs to produce something and to show it. No, I think you yourself, you are angry about the results. I think you yourself, you feel touched, and I thank him very much to do that work, to present it to us. But it's now time for us politicians to pick it up, not to read it and to say thank you very much and go home, go back to Cambridge again. No, to pick this up and to rectify it. This is our task.
I mean, as we're talking about rectifying it, I mean, when we're looking particularly at the youth, we've seen the disgraceful statistics on infant mortality. But the youth is often a time where health issues can come from poverty or from situations of austerity that will remain with the rest of their lives. Things like youthful areas of say, malnutrition or a lack of development or vitamin. If the politicians do change policy and change course and do manage to rectify the situation, what will be the long-term effects of the situation that we're in now? How long will it take to get health back to where it should be?
Well, the question you ask is valid, but also very difficult to answer, in the sense that right now the data we can collect are data that goes back to 2012 or so. So health data have this lag that now we have an idea of what was going on in 2012 and 11, which are still early years in the crisis. We're now in the 6th year of economic recession in Greece. So you do raise a very valid point. You raised the issue of malnutrition. A recent UNICEF report noted that there has been a very large increase in the number of households with children, poor households with children, that cannot afford to buy nutritious food for their kids, so meat or fish or vegetables. Now we know that this kind of malnutrition early on in life can have long-term effects, but it will take many years to find out exactly what these were. If we take the example of the Great Depression in the US, it took decades for the full effects of that crisis to show. But this exactly point should guide policymakers in the sense that it shouldn't be the role of academics 20 years later to study the deleterious effects of these policies, but now is a time of action, and protecting vulnerable groups, protecting population health is actually an investment in the long-term economic potential of countries.
Well, I'd like to thank you both for coming in and explaining this. New Europe will, of course, be continuing our coverage on the effects of austerity, and we'll be pushing however we can for a more fair and equal Europe. We want to communicate that. We want to communicate with you. Keep watching New Europe. Keep watching our programs. Thank you.